Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Box Office Talk. This is the show where I break down what happened at the box office, see if my predictions for the top 5 are correct, then make predictions for next week's top 5. So let's get right on into it. Last week, I predicted that number 1 would be Don't Worry, Darling. Number 2 would be The Woman King. Number 3 would be Avatar. Number 4 would be Barbarian, and number 5 would be Pearl. And I got all 5 of my predictions right for this weekend. Pretty fucking awesome. I think for me, it seemed a little bit easier than like some of the other weekends, but then again, I thought for sure some other weekends were going to be easy and things are always unpredictable, so let's take this as a win. Me and these people who are getting shout outs right now, there are a couple people who did get all 5 of their predictions right, which is awesome. Welcome to the winners club, if you will. Don't expect to stay here long. We don't know what's going to happen next weekend, same as we don't know what's going to happen every weekend. I forget what I said about things being easy earlier. But let's go into number 1. Of course, it was Don't Worry, Darling. We're probably not going to delve into the alleged drama on set stuff, whatever. There's conflicting reports everywhere. It's a shit show. You know what I mean? It's not really worth going into here because this is a pretty solid debut for a movie that, sure, has its influences and has some stars in there, name stars that will attract an audience, but for a non-IP film, this is a pretty solid opening, especially since this movie opened with $19 million, which might not sound like a lot, but then again, this is pretty good for post-pandemic. People still iffy about going back to theaters, not even really because of COVID-related issues anymore. This is a solid debut, especially on a budget of $35 million. So worldwide, they're sitting at 30 already, so $5 million away from getting over the initial production budget listed, and then they're very close to doubling that 70 million, maybe even tripling it, depending on how things will go. So give that next weekend or the weekend after, and we'll be getting some pretty solid reports back from this. Obviously, this is Olivia Wilde's second feature film after Booksmart, and this movie debuted way better than Booksmart. It's going to be way more financially profitable as well. It made 13 million over the opening weekend for Booksmart, and it is $3 million away from outgrossing Booksmart's entire domestic run. Worldwide, it already has outgrossed Booksmart's entire worldwide run by $6 million, so that's pretty, fucking incredible. But Booksmart, it got great reviews, and people did go see it, but not enough, and it was a very small audience. It did not do well. It had kind of a cult following, and people have grown to watch it on, like, VOD at home stuff, and have grown to appreciate it, obviously. Still, very good movie. But, congrats to the people involved rooting for this thing, obviously, and of course congrats to Warner Brothers, because this is a pretty solid debut. They're riding their hopes on the future of their film business with this and Black Adam. Now, if I'm going to be honest, as far as like what they need, I don't know. So I don't know, like, if you want to take into like how much Warner Brothers actually needs from this movie to be considered profitable. I don't know if this is enough, but from what I'm looking at, the information that I have, personally, the movie personally, it is doing solid. We'll see how it goes, but like at this point, it can only go up, and it's pretty close to doing that. I don't see this as a really bad opening, and like I said, this is pushing aside the on-set stuff. You know what I mean? Alleged on-set stuff. It seems like that didn't really hurt its box office chances. If anything, I think some people were a little bit more interested. I know obviously 19 million maybe doesn't reflect a really big, great opening, but like I said, take into context everything that's been happening in the film industry, in the box office, the theaters, audience members. This is pretty good. Moving on to number 2 is The Woman King. I was happy to see that it did hold over well, like I thought it would from last weekend. It made $11 million, adding to a domestic total of $36 million. That is still $14 million away from its listed production budget of $50 million, though. That's the thing I really want to touch at, is that it held over well, but it is still not close to getting over that or doubling that budget. Worldwide, it's only up by like 1 million, so it's sitting at 37 million. So time will tell if it'll release in other places to boost up the worldwide numbers, or if this will continue to do well in the upcoming fall season. We'll see how it goes. Obviously, this movie got a ton of praise. People are talking about it, and I think that's why it did so well this weekend as well. But, it's doing well if you just look at individual spots, but then you take into, budget is 50 million, worldwide is not pushing it over that much. And it looks a little iffy, and I'm kind of worried about that, if I'm going to be honest. So if I can put a plea out there, go see this movie. It's very good. But yeah, but it's holding over strong, so maybe it'll have some kind of thing going for it. You know what I mean? If you want to compare this to other movies by Gina Prince Bythewood, it is 1 million away from outgrossing her movie Secret Life of Bees. It has already outgrossed Beyond the Lights by 22 million and Love and Basketball by 9 million. That is just domestically. Worldwide, it's outgrossed Love and Basketball by 10 million and Beyond the Lights by 23, and it is 2 million away from outgrossing Secret Life of Bees. So there you go. Like it's already about to. It's looking like it's about to be Gina Prince Bythewood's highest grossing film. Obviously, The Old Guard was a Netflix movie, so kind of hard to compare because it didn't go to theaters, and I think it literally came out in 2020. I don't even think that was 2021. It was probably 2020, or maybe it was 2020. No, it was 2020. I remember this. Yeah, I remember this now. So yeah, but it's looking like it's at least going to be her highest grossing movie, even if it ultimately doesn't turn out to be that profitable. If it doesn't double this budget, I'm really hoping it does. Like I've said, go see this movie. Very good. Number 3, though, we have Avatar, the re-release that is rocking the world right now. It made $10 million, adding to a domestic total of $770 million. Obviously, this is taking into everything that it's earned, ever since it came out in 2009. Worldwide, it is now sitting at $2,863 million. I was wondering how this would do because, some re-releases get, out there and some people don't know what's out. I think Avatar had a pretty solid push, and especially since the sequel is, several months away, people are like, yeah, I need a refresher, and, seeing this on the big screen could be cool, especially since they're talking about the updated VFX, and some word is now getting around that there are post-credit scenes that are like clips from Way of Water, like stripped right from the movie. So that might even carry over some interest for people next weekend. I believe it's still going to be here next weekend. So that could that word of mouth could be pretty positive for the next weekend's earnings, but we'll talk about that later. Number 4 is Barbarian, still doing pretty well. I did want to correct what I've been saying. I've said like the budget is 10.5 million, but now Wikipedia has updated and it says $4 million, which I think makes a little bit more sense. And that makes the movie look even more profitable as well. It made $4 million. This adds to a domestic total of 28 million. And this movie, similar to Woman King, the worldwide only bumps it up by $1 million. So it's $29 million in total. But now that we see that the budget is 4 million, 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, that's like 7 times that budget it has already earned back, which is incredible. It's going to get that 8th, probably the 9th, and probably the 10th. It's still going to be doing very well. That's fucking awesome for this movie. I'm so happy that it's doing as well as it did. And obviously, now that we know that the budget is relatively low, it had a solid, pretty great chance from the start. But I think, the word of mouth just helps. The extra earnings that they have now gotten just based off of audiences' reactions, that's the cherry on top. I'm hoping the same kind of outcome for a movie that comes out next week. That looks pretty good. We'll talk about that later. Number 5 is Pearl, making $1.91 million. The rest of the movies in this top 10 are all going to be very close to 1 million. So these numbers could switch at any second, the usual, because they're so fucking close, and I do these on Sundays and I don't have the official ones. But whatever, we're doing it Sunday, fuck you. So yeah, I made that this weekend and adds to a domestic total of $6 million. So now it has, earned back its $1 million budget by, 6 times. That's pretty fucking good. Obviously not one of A24's highest grossing movies, but it is 5 million away from outgrossing X's domestic run, 7 for the worldwide run. We don't have any worldwide numbers for Pearl yet, unfortunately. And it's looking, because it only made 1 million this weekend, I wonder how it'll do next weekend. I think it'll be interesting to see how it does next weekend if it kind of stays around this number, like, yeah, it made like $1 million-ish. Maybe it'll have a chance to actually outgross X. I would love that. I would really love for Pearl to have the kind of same treatment that Barbarian has kind of gotten, where word of mouth is kind of spread, like, no, this is fucking great. It's not just a, been there, done that kind of movie. And Pearl, and I like both, I love Barbarian, I love Pearl. Pearl is an extra special movie for me. That's one of my favorites of the entire year. Hopefully a review coming soon. I would love to do a review for that and X. Both of them are some of my favorites of this year, so I'm hoping that this movie gets more recognition. Number 6 doesn't look very good as far as like more word of mouth though. See How They Run. And no, there is no production budget listed for this movie still. Bummer. It made $1.9 million. See, like I said, very close to Pearl. That adds to a domestic total of also 6 million like Pearl. Worldwide, it is sitting at 10 million, but I doubt that 10 million is enough for whatever this budget is. We don't have the official budget, but looking at the movie, seeing the movie, there's no way it's, there's no way it's 5 million and they've just now doubled that, you know what I mean? Like they had to put more into it to capture this era, to get these names: David Oyelowo, Sam Rockwell, Saoirse Ronan. You know, you need more than $5 million. You need more than Jason Blum money, and that's not what they have made back, which is pretty unfortunate. You know, it's a bummer. You know, you can only plead for. I'm now realizing. I know I've already said this a bunch in this video already, but you can only plead for audiences to go see movies, you know, so much. They won't do it. You know what I mean? They'll hear maybe it's good and they're like, oh, maybe I'll see it at some point on VOD, and then they'll watch it on VOD and go like, I can't believe this movie flopped or whatever in the theaters. And it's like, you're part of that problem. But whatever, I know individual problems, doesn't matter. Oh God, I just don't want theaters to shut down forever. That's all. Is that too much to ask for? Moving on to number 7, which is Bullet Train, which is, you know, that little more hopeful as far as the future of cinema, movies that are original ideas. As I've said before, Bullet Train is based off a book, but not a lot of people know that. So it kind of counts as like an original IP kind of thing. Doesn't matter. Who cares? It made $1.8 million this weekend, adding to a domestic total of $99 million. It is $1 million away from $100 million total, but it is also $1 million away from outgrossing Brad Pitt's movie Seven, which is a pretty good achievement. Worldwide, it is sitting at $230 million. So now that puts it $7 million over Interview with the Vampire, and it is $81 million away from outgrossing Brad Pitt's Ocean's 13. Whether it does that or not, looking kind of iffy. It's now gone down below the top 5 of the box office, so it's looking like it probably won't. But hey, stranger things have happened in this series. But if I was a betting man, which is kind of what the series is sometimes, I think that is very unlikely. But still, it's doing pretty fucking great. If it somehow managed to scramble 40 million together so they could triple this $90 million budget, that would be awesome. Looking like it's not doing that, but hey, 50 million over that officially as of this weekend, not bad either. You know what I mean? Especially, like I've said, the other factor. You know what? For every time I talk about like a movie that's not strictly a big IP or like a big comic book or whatever, I should just put like, I should edit in an asterisk behind what I say as far as like, it's doing pretty well. And then that asterisk basically, you know, means insert any kind of like context, theater, current modern day audiences, whatever. That way I can save time. Moving on to number 8, which is DC League of Super Pets, making $1.7 million, adding to a domestic total of $90 million. They did it. They finally domestically crossed over their initial production budget number. Fucking finally. It still needs $15 million to outgross the Lego Movie 2 and become the one of the top 3 highest grossing WAG animation films of all time. Still looking very unlikely that that's happening. Worldwide, though, it is sitting at $185 million. So domestically, they cross over the initial production budget, and then worldwide, they have finally doubled it. Wow, that took so fucking long. This movie came out end of July, and it is now like 2 months later in September, and they've only just now like doubled the budget. Jesus fucking Christ. It is $2 million over WAG Stork's movie and $5 million away from outgrossing the Lego Movie 2, $28 million from outgrossing Smallfoot. It's gonna leave soon. It does not matter. It's probably maybe it'll get $5 million. $28 million though, that's a stretch. Let's move on to number 9, which is Top Gun Maverick, making $1.5 million, adding to a domestic total of $711 million. It is now $59 million away from Avatar's number 4 spot for the top 10 or of all time highest grossing domestic runs ever. Obviously, it's now going to be harder for it because Avatar is making money currently. Worldwide, though, it is sitting at $1,471 million. That is $43 million away from outgrossing Furious 7, and then it would get into the top 10 highest grossing worldwide runs ever. It's about to leave the top 10. That is fucking crazy. I think there are movies that will push this out next weekend unless it somehow beats out League of Super Pets and Bullet Train and see how they run in Pearl. But then again, this movie has kicked that kind of ass before, so we might still see this movie around next weekend. Time will tell. Place your bets. This won't count for like your top 5 predictions, but if you want to bet if it'll be here or not, go ahead. I legitimately am so unsure. And finally, closing out the video, I think for sure this is the last time we're going to see this one. You know, if there is a God, this will be the last time we see this. Minions, The Rise of Gru. Sorry, my fellow gentle minions. This is it. Probably, maybe, who knows. It made $1.04 million, adding to a domestic total of $365 million. $3 million away from outgrossing Despicable Me 2 and The Secret Life of Pets. And like I've been saying, it probably maybe could do this outside of the top 10, but once movies are outside of the top 10, unless I predict it to be like in the top 5 and it somehow doesn't on its opening weekend, I can't really talk about, you know, that's territory I don't really venture into. Maybe you can get a special shout out, you know, in one of these videos like, congrats, you did it, but let's move on to the actual stuff. maybe I'll do that. But yeah, it's about to outgross all of the other previous Illumination films domestically. That is fucking nuts. Worldwide, though, has a bit more of an uphill battle still, which is probably going to lose. 919 million in total, 56 million away from outgrossing Despicable Me 2. So yeah, bigger number, probably not going to do that, but the domestic one, for sure. Anyways, now that is over. We're done with Minions. Forever. Not forever, it'll come back. But now it's time for the fun part, the predictions for next week's top 5. I am going with number 1, Smile. I think the marketing campaign might get people interested just based off of how batshit crazy it looks. I think people might go in expecting like a funny, bad kind of movie, and hopefully it's actually good. I've been hearing some pretty positive things early on, so I'm hoping for like a surprisingly good movie, but that just has, you know, an interesting marketing campaign. I think that'll get butts in the seats. Number 2, I think will be Don't Worry Darling, just because we are getting close to spooky season, you know, so, you know, thriller, horror kind of movie, maybe that'll stick around. Then I think number 3 will be Bros. I think this, you know, comedies, we just saw Easter Sunday, how that did not do very well, and obviously this being very, you know, LGBT pro, there are a lot of homophobes out there that will probably not go see this movie. They'll be boycotting it. Full disclosure, I'm gonna see this movie, so I will not be one of those people. I hope to help Bros with its box office triumph, but I don't see it doing tremendously, because, you know, we've seen how comedies do. Comedies really only do well if they go to Netflix or streaming now, so, you know, kind of an uphill battle there. But then number 4, I'm going with The Woman King, and then number 5, Avatar. I think it'll stick around, like I said earlier, due to the word of mouth, like, hey, there's extra footage if you stick around to the end, and some people might be intrigued by that. But what are your predictions for next week's top 5? Leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you guys for watching. Make sure to subscribe. I'm Jackson Fulcher. See you guys next time.